welcome to Steppe Gold's live investment summit today, hosted by Six. Today I'm joined by Bata Tumor-Osher, President and CEO of Steppe Gold, as well as Anil Warech, their Executive Vice President. The team is going to walk us through a company presentation, and after we'll be accepting some live Q&A questions. You can submit questions anytime during the presentation using the Q&A panel found on the right-hand side of your screen. And as always, this summit is being recorded and it'll be available to watch afterwards on Six.com. So without further ado, Bata, I'm going to hand it over to you to kick things off.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll go through the current updates. So it's been a very challenging year with the COVID lockdowns and travel restrictions, but luckily we don't have any COVID cases at the site. All of our employees, including contractors, are fully vaccinated. Plus, we do follow strict safety protocols for all site visitors and 17 quarantine period. So this helped us to prevent the spread of COVID on site, and we're continuing our operations without any delays related directly to the COVID situations. But the main issue we've been facing during the summer was bringing reagents from China into the Mongolia. The storage facility for dangerous goods at the Erlian border city in China closed for the maintenance reasons, and all the dangerous goods to Mongolia are on hold right now. So at the same time, while we are waiting for the storage facility for dangerous goods to be operational, we pursued an option to bring in reagents directly from the factory to Mongolia without unloading the containers at the border. So that means we are doing all the border inspection and clearance at the chemical plant in Hebei province, China. So after complete checkups and by relevant government authorities in China, the chemical plant and its transportation company finally received all required approvals and submitted all the documents to the transportation to transport the reagents from China directly into the Mongolia. So far we have received all the required approvals from the Mongolia side and the China side, and now we are waiting for the Erlian border city's final approval to go. So finally, with all the necessary approvals are in place, we expect the shipment to be very soon. And meanwhile, because of the situation at the border, the government is supporting and allowing us to use and transport the unused reagents from another mine in Mongolia. So we are very pleased with the support from the government agencies and the colleagues, and glad to be in full production very soon. So we start using the reagents from the Mongolian mine. So far, we haven't stopped the mining, crushing, and stacking operations, and we do have over 34,000 ounces of gold ready to be leached on the leach pad and the ROM pad. So as for operational updates, we have ordered a brand new crushing circuit, and it's ready. It's being shipped right now. The construction has been commenced. We also completed the construction of the boiler house, which will be in operation in September, and we're expecting to use this boiler house during the winter times. On top of that, we have the definitive feasibility study is almost complete, and hopefully it's going to be released within the coming weeks. As for the exploration part, we have drilling programs planned at the ATO. We have drilling rigs on site right now. And also we are mobilizing first drilling rig to the UK project. So far, luckily, we don't have any injuries and accidents on site. So in general, even though we had some issues related to the reagents, we haven't stopped any operations, and also continue our daily activities, and even also continue our social responsibility programs within the local communities. We have prepared a small video related to the social programs. Let's have a look.
This is Steppe Gold. Steppe Gold commenced a scholarship program providing financial support to over 1,000 students since 2017. Steppe Gold is expected to pay a total of 242 billion tugrik to the state budget and 43 billion tugrik to the local budget in taxes and fees during the extraction period of Altan Sagan Ovo project. Under mutual agreement with the local government, the company will allocate a total of 11.4 billion tugrik for the development of the local community over the next 10 years. This is the development and prosperity of Mongolians. Mongolia's premier precious metals company, Steppe Gold.
Great. Thanks, Bata, and thank you everyone for joining this summer update. We didn't mention before, we did release our financials this morning, and our CFO could not join with a family emergency on today's call. So we expect to have another shareholder update as well as financial and operational update in mid-September. So we'll let everyone know in the coming weeks when we have that update with myself, Jeremy, and Bata. So I think as we highlighted in this video here, we just presented, as Bata communicated before, we've continued to make headway on phase 2 and more importantly keep everyone employed and still continue on our ESG initiatives on the social side, environmental side. I don't know, Bata, if you want to talk to any of the commitments here.
Yeah, yeah, we signed the cooperation agreement 2 years ago, and we've been keep continuing our social responsibility programs, encouraging locals. And as for the ATO side, we have a really good and tight community over there, and with the major job provider at the summer and the provincial level. And so far we have meeting all the requirements related to the social and environmental causes. So, yeah, the programs are keep running.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think what we'd like to highlight obviously is what we have accomplished over the last 6 months. Certainly very important that we doubled our resource. That's the basis of our phase 2 expansion. Not even including Mung, which is obviously the new deposit as part of the resource update. We'll have a pathway to expand into the sulfides to the phase 2 expansion that's already permitted and in a way has already started in terms of construction with the crusher being installed this fall. That's a phase 2 capex number. That's a phase 2 expense that we're bringing forward to be able to use it in phase 1 actually on the crushing side to increase our ability to extract more ounces from the oxides while constructing phase 2. So here we are mid-February, mid-August. We think the feasibility study is on track for early September, mid-September, where we can actually release the headline numbers from the feasibility study and then file the complete 43-101 a few weeks later. That will be the basis of our construction, show us that we have a circa 10-year mine life to start, that we can start constructing that immediately, and maybe it'll take us 18 months, 24 months, or 16 months to build. And we'll have some definitive numbers around that. And certainly we'll start that expansion with the expanding of the camp, as I mentioned, the crusher, and start ordering long lead items. On the back of that feasibility study, as previously mentioned, we expect that the debt piece for expansion will come in multiple phases. We're looking domestically within Mongolia from local banks to explore options there this year. As we wouldn't need to spend all of our capex in the first 6 months. It's more of an 18-month spend. So we're looking at a first tranche from within Mongolia as a possibility this fall on the back of the feasibility study. And then rounding that out with the international syndicate in the new year, I guess Q1, early Q2, we expect the international syndicate to round out our financing needs on the debt side. So it's a multi-tranche approach. We certainly have a lot of interest, and we're certainly getting a lot closer with the feasibility study to really put a pin in the capex numbers and the requirements of debt. I think we're still looking at about a 70% debt, 30% equity, cash on hand, and the cash flow from operations for the next 2 years while bringing phase 2 online should fill in all the cash requirements actually to build phase 2. So it's quite exciting to bring in a much larger mine life. I would say, less volatile operation online in just a short period. And certainly the 2.45 million ounces that we are starting with has a lot of room to grow, given we've only drilled down to 400 meters at the ATO and Mung deposits, and now we're stepping out on the project for the first time ever and identifying further mineralization that can be added and extended into our mine life. So you could increase production profile as well as extend mine life. And we think we can continue on that path for quite a while. And so that's quite exciting on the feasibility and phase 2 expansion side, as well as this year being, as Bata mentioned, bringing the agents back on and having the ability to get to our inventory. We built up a large inventory over the last few months, and we're continuing to as we start leaching and recovering gold and cash flow. It's going to be, I guess, a bigger year for us, more stable, given that we get to leach this year throughout the winter, which we did not last year. So really looking forward to having steady 12 months of production in short order. That really underpins the company's growth into phase 2 and the expiration on both of our properties. Last but not least, we mentioned our listings on both the Mongolian Stock Exchange and potentially another Asian stock exchange. So the Mongolian Stock Exchange has been approved in the summer. Obviously, we've locked in a price, and it's not really a financing listing, but we are required to capitalize, obviously, and issue shares. So hence the $1.75 million raise. But certainly, we're waiting for the price to recover. Hopefully sooner than later, and that's when we'll launch the IPO on the Mongolian Stock Exchange. So it's just around the corner, but we have the window we get to choose our own timing on this, and the price has already been determined, which is a higher price than today. On the Asian exchange, clearly we've upgraded our auditors, as many would have seen on the AGM. BDO in Hong Kong is now our auditors, so we've upgraded from MMP, who are great on the junior side, to our intention of becoming a much larger player, both in production and expansion, and hopefully even consolidation in Mongolia. We've now upgraded to BDO as our auditors, and even Fasken Martineau as our legal counsel, who are very strong in Asia, both on the listing side, but have done many of the strategic transactions from a lot of the Asian corporates that have been buying precious metal assets globally. On the shareholder side, I think we've highlighted in the last few presentations, obviously, that we have Fidelity in Singapore as a shareholder. They've increased the position as of last month as well. So very strong supporters. So all of our supporters who are in it for the longer term are still there, and we're certainly looking at additional institutional interest to buy on market as we grow. The main banks that cover us formally are Stifel GMP and Haywood Securities. Both have targets that are 2 to 3x our current price, or within that range, and are highly supportive, with other banks like Laurentian and Cormark having put out notes on us on the watch list or whatnot to highlight us. Hopefully we can convert that into more formal coverage in the coming quarters. We do believe there's another 1 to 2 banks over Q3 and Q4 that will officially launch on the company. So I think bringing more eyeballs on the story through other banks covering us formally and having their view on us, and these are all new banks that have had no banking relationship, have never made a fee off us. I think that'll be quite exciting to help us grow as we move into phase 2. That's where Cam, I think we can go back to the last slide, and we can actually really open it up to questions. This is meant to answer questions and update people and clarify our update last week going into the fall, which is clearly a very busy fall for us. Bata, did I miss anything else before the questions?
Yeah, I'm fine. I think it's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you guys. I think that was a great presentation and certainly a very nice video. I would like to remind everyone in attendance that you can ask any questions you like using the Q&A panel found on the right-hand side of your screen. And with that, let's get into it. We have the first question on the docket. What is your preferred project finance? What is your view on the royalty versus stream finance?
Actually, given we already had a stream on phase 1 with Triple Flag Mining Finance, that's how we have acquired this project and helped build the project. And that was really meant to be ring fenced to phase 1, the oxide, leaving a lot more room for equity shareholders and upside for equity shareholders in phase 2. So our intention is to look and focus solely on debt with equity as the way to financing it. As I mentioned, you're looking at about a 70% funding on the debt side, with the 30% being the equity contribution, which could be cash on hand as we start construction, as well as continued cash flow from the oxide mine over the next 2 years that could fill that gap.
Okay, great. Thanks, Neil. Alexander in the audience asks, what can we expect in regard to stock price? The company is way undervalued. We do not see the value of the asset correlating with market cap. And what importance has the presidential election?
Sure. I'll start with the valuation side, and then Bata can talk about the presidential election and what the importance is there. Certainly, we're undervalued, and like I mentioned, 4 banks have pointed that out on their research. We are buyers of our own stock. You'll see Bata and myself having purchased over the last few weeks as well, and we've always continued to buy and never sold. We're buyers at all levels. We're in it for long term, and we believe we're worth multiples, and we're trying our best to close that valuation gap. Certainly, some operational hiccups don't help. But those are short-term hiccups, and anyone in the mining business and junior market business understands that. So we don't really have to explain that to shareholders. However, the gap we need to close on the medium and the long-term value of Steppe is certainly why we're looking at these other exchanges. On other exchanges, there's a lot more interest from producers in Asia. The valuation multiples are stronger. We're always stuck in are you a producer or explorer? We have explorers that have no path to production and smaller resources than us that trade higher than us, and we have producers that don't trade well as well. So we're certainly pounding the table through additional bank coverage, getting more eyeballs on the story to help close that valuation gap. At some point, that will happen, and some of it's on us, absolutely. On the operational side, the communication side, and the rest will close on by having other strong partners on the banking side and hopefully some of these exchanges that we mentioned in the near future, where certainly guys like us are getting values, 5 to 10 times our current value.
Great, thank you, Neil.
No problem.
On the presidential elections, so we had the presidential elections in June 24th. And we elected the president. It's going to be one term for 6 years. And he used to be the previously prime minister of Mongolia from the ruling party. So basically, all the policies from the current government are continuing within his presidential terms. So it's there are no any big or dramatic changes or anything like that. So it's going smoothly as it is. Yeah.
Thank you. Albert says, let's say we can't get enough cash together for the 100 million capex. What is your plan to raise the cash? For how many years can the heap leach operation be sustained?
Yep, that's a good question. So we're quite confident on the debt side that we already know the interest is there to fund the debt side. I would say we're fairly confident, given that we have shown that we can produce from the oxides. The oxides can produce cash flow when in production, and we have probably safely, I'd say, 2 to 3 years of oxide production. So if we wanted to, you could drag out the capex spend over that 2 to 3 years and produce cash flow from the oxides to build up your cash contribution for the phase 2 expansion, and take less debt, or take debt and that cash flow over that longer amortization to fund it. So we're fairly confident that just from the oxide production and some debt, you can fund this.
Yeah, also on top of that, we do have lots of interest from the local financial institutions and local banks. And also we have been, as part of the Gold 2 program, it's a government-initiated program, and they've been quite supportive to the gold companies. And last year, with the production of over 34,000 ounces, we've been like second largest producer in Mongolia. So gold plays a vital role in bringing foreign currencies to Mongolia. So we are quite confident that we can bring in debt from local and international investors. So as Anil mentioned before, 30 and 70%, 30 will be from the equity, from the cash in hand, from the company can put it in ourselves, and we're expecting 70 million to be in debt. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Simon asks, you sold, this is a very technical question. You sold 6,558 ounces of gold for an average realized price of $1,852, but revenue is at $10,771. It should be at 1,852 times 6,558, which is 12,145. Why the gap? Is this still in receivables?
Certainly not reported sales would be receivables or sold after the quarter. So that there's obviously a gap between the amount we produce and the amount that's sold on a quarter end basis. But that is certainly a Jeremy question if you want clarity. And Simon, if you want to email that question, I can get loop in Jeremy to clarify ahead of our next update in a month.
Okay, thank you. What is your current cash on hand? Do you consider Steinhardt technology to increase ore sorting efficiency?
The cash on hand is roughly 10 million US, meaning net cash. I mean, it's certainly over 21.5 million US, I believe, but that's including the debt that we received last year of 10.5 million US. That's just sitting in account, interest rate neutral, that we haven't actually drawn on, given that we're not in phase 2 expansion mode as yet. So our net cash is roughly 10 million US. What was the second part of that?
If you would consider Steinhardt technology or Steinert technology to increase ore sorting efficiency.
That is a technical question that we can send to our ops team. And we're always looking at any ways that could increase efficiency. We're about a year into our startup and ramp up of the oxide mine in the middle of COVID. There was a lot of hiccups that any mine encounters, whether you're in Nevada, you're in Ontario, or in Mongolia. So we're always looking at that. If you remember from last summer, we had crusher bottleneck because that's what you incur. You can't until you're live running an operation. You have no clue how things will act, right? Until you're actually doing it. So that's where we actually helped optimize that on the crushing side. So in fact, we've crushed more material, I think, in the last month than we have to date in any other month in the last couple of years. So certainly we're actually crushing more with the current operations than we were a year ago, which means that we've optimized and learned. So any bottlenecks there have just created deferrals on leaching and processing and production, but it's never lost. I think that's very important to understand. And so any of this sorting and stuff, we're happy to look at other ways to optimize our oxide mine. And certainly we're not even in phase 2 yet, so we don't know what optimization opportunities exist. But we are working with global firms that build these operations and run these operations. So we're certainly working with, we think, the best to come up with the right solutions.
Great, thanks, Anil. A quick question here, just from Howard. How much will the initial capex be? He didn't hear clearly through the stream, but if you could maybe just repeat that. Yeah.
So the capex, we're assuming in the range of 125 million US. I mean, it could be 100 million US or it could be 150, but we're assuming it's around 125 million US, and we'll have those final numbers in a matter of weeks. And let's just assume it's on the higher end for whatever reason. If it's 150 million US, we would fund that 70% debt, 30% equity. So you're looking at debt only option. We're not looking to add any more streams or royalties to this asset. That was what phase 1 was for. The oxide mine with Triple Flag, we were giving up 25% of our production, where they're paying us 17% of spot. That was our way to get to phase 2, where we're now going to hopefully deliver the 125 to 150,000 ounces, and we're only delivering 7,000 ounces to them. So that means all the rest of those ounces are for our shareholders.
Okay, great. Stan in the audience asked what your ticker symbol was while you were talking about the potential exploration of an option on a listing of a major Asian stock exchange. So maybe you could just go over what your stock symbols are currently, and if you're looking at any specifics for any of your other endeavors.
Yeah, so the Mongolian Stock Exchange cross-listing has already been announced. We're already approved in Mongolia. We've already filed the prospectus, and we have I think Bata is a 6-month window since approval to launch that. So we expect that to happen in the next month, maybe 2 latest, in terms of the Mongolian Stock Exchange listing. On the Asian exchanges, I mean, you have Singapore and Hong Kong. So we've probably given the interest, given we're in Asia, given we're close to those exchanges, we're certainly exploring both of those. given where some of our shareholders are coming from now on the institutional side, we're making that decision, and we're hoping to update the market in the coming month or two if we made a decision there and where.
Okay, great. Another technical question potentially, but Ike in the audience wants to know, or rather, Caterpillar is offering a drill to mill technology. Could it be meaningful for you?
Certainly. That's probably a phase 2. My understanding, because there's they provide equipment financing, a drill to mill. We obviously applies for phase 2. Certainly something we would look at. We've spoken to Caterpillar both locally and in Switzerland in the past. Again, our engineering partners, DRA Global, they're doing a lot of those conversations now to allow us to provide that kind of short list of partners that we'll look for in the phase 2 expansion, and as we source from multiple sources, the quotes and the opportunities and technology, we'll certainly look at everyone. So we're not stuck on any one provider for anything at this point.
Right. Okay. When will you start leaching?
The moment we get reagents back on site, so that could be within days, or we expect within a couple of weeks latest. Certainly, I think as Bata highlighted, this is COVID is a very real issue globally. I mean, the Bloomberg top article yesterday was the supply chain issues globally coming from within Asia as well, and China. So it's not a Mongolia thing. It's not just a Steppe thing. It's a global thing where you're having logistical delays, supply issues across all industries. So this has certainly hit us. I think we were a little too optimistic when last year we did get our agents on site during COVID, during the beginning of it. In March 2020, people didn't know what it was and what's going on, and Mongolia completely shut down very smartly and proactively. So the borders were closed back then, and we got lucky, I guess, and with our support, we got that on in country last year, and we were probably pretty confident this year that we wouldn't be as impacted by COVID. So certainly we are. We've certainly updated the market in the last few releases, and certainly, again, it's only a small hiccup. I would say small term hiccup. So I would say the market will be updated as soon as we have reagents back on site, which means we start leaching. And the luxury we have is this is a quick cycle. So when you start leaching, you can have your first gold pour 2 weeks later, and that means you're generating cash flow 2 weeks later, 2-3 weeks later. So certainly it comes in very quickly, and we already have that inventory built up. That there's no delay. So as we start leaching, we'll continue to mine, crush, and stack, and building inventory. But we're already sitting on that circa 35,000 ounces on a recovered basis of inventory today. So we're in a good position there to get to it. So that could be. I'm hoping that we announce that by next week. But honestly, within the next couple of weeks, we should be able to update the market that we're back leaching.
Great. Considering the problems or the hiccups that you've been experiencing, how will you manage phase 2 with the current team in place?
Sure. I guess the hiccups, some of them aren't ours, I guess. You can't control global logistical delays or COVID. In fact, our first quarter of production last year during startup and ramp up was a fantastic result. So our team did an amazing job, and that's all of our local Mongolia team. So when we identified a crusher bottleneck, we fixed it. So certainly you have to add a bit more bench strength as you move into phase 2, which is a different operation than the heap leach operation. And we've already identified partners, and we have opportunities both locally and from a global technical expertise to add value, and we'll continue to do so. So it's a different operation. So it is a different operation than phase 1. And we have people who have that experience in country already. This is not the first CIL plant or flotation circuit to be built in country. And certainly there's a lot of people who have that experience, and we'll bring them on board where needed. But I believe, just like the heap leach, there's a lot of local talent that we'll certainly look at. And we have been, and Bata deals with them regularly.
Yeah, right, so right. On top of, if I add just, Well, we've been listed in 2018. So as soon as we listed, we had challenges with the social licensing, and we fixed that within the first year. And the next year, 2019, we built the mine. We got all the permits within a 1 year time. And last year, we commenced the production. So as for the issues related to heap leach, I mean, we're going fast tracking as much as possible and fixing all the issues within on time, hopefully. And we do have a really good support from Mongolia and from the local people right now. So hopefully with the phase 2, it's going to be even much better and even in a less period of time than expected, since we have the infrastructure and camp and the social licensing and everything in place. So hopefully the shareholder will be happier.
Fair enough. Thank you. Nigel asks, why did we choose BDO HK versus Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, etc., where we might have good connections that would not run interference with the independence issues?
Well, actually, Jeremy was at Deloitte for 10 plus years, our CFO. So he obviously was part of the search. And for reasons that I think will be made clear, you can see that BDO is still a global regarded firm. They're strong in Hong Kong. That's where the office we're working out of, and they actually have experience in Mongolia. There's not a lot of firms, KPMG included, that will have the strong exposure to Mongolia that some of these other groups did. So we did a search over the last year, and we decided as a board that BDO was the best fit for our needs for the next 5-10 years as we're growing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Neil. Is that 25% royalty still in place for only phase 1 or for all of SGO?
No, it's in place until we deliver 46,000 ounces and I believe 325,000 ounces of silver. So it's in about 2 years' time, give or take. That will fall off. So it will never be 25% of our production, and it'll be a maximum delivered ounces of 7,150, I believe, or 7,125,000 ounces. So again, on an assumption basis, purely just mathematical assumption here, if in 3 years we're producing 100,000 ounces of gold and we've already delivered that 46,000 ounces to Triple Flag, then all we're delivering on the 100,000 ounces of gold is 7,125. So, on that basis, it becomes about a 7%. On that basis. Now, if we're producing 150,000 ounces, it becomes obviously closer to 4 or 5%.
So there is no 25% royalty. No.
Yeah. So it's just 25% now until we deliver 46,000 ounces.
Okay, thank you.
And the government royalty is 5%, just to be clear.
Thank you. Is there a plan B in the case gold would fall below $1,500 an ounce? I can imagine this would have consequences for the project timelines.
I think once we understand what our operating costs will be, so what will it cost to produce an ounce of gold for phase 2, then we can make that decision. So if it did cost $1,200 an ounce all in to produce, and our margins at only $300 if it's $1,500 gold, certainly you will look a lot harder and see if it makes sense. Now, $300 margin on a larger quantity of production still makes sense, but we're obviously not in the forecasting business. We have to look at what the margins. I mean, gold was $1,500 not too long ago, and it was $1,200 $1,250 when we bought this project and built it. But we had the margin then, and we assumed that we'll have the margin then. But I think, given that we're a low-cost producer, both on phase 1 and we expect phase 2 as well to be sub $1,000, we have a nice buffer. So if it's $1,500 gold or $1,300 gold, it will probably make still a lot of sense to be in production and to expand. But maybe, as an investor pointed out, maybe it does make more sense from a capital allocation perspective to maybe draw out or amortize that expansion, so that you'll incur a lot of costs when you're selling less gold at a lower price in phase 1.
Great, thank you. Willie asks, why don't you privatize the company? The share price looks like you could need rescue fundraising. We certainly don't need rescue fundraising. We have the ability to weather the storms. We've weathered it before. For those of you who are new to the story or newer to the story,
We listed this company in 2018 when there was no other IPOs. We were the only IPO, and unfortunately, we couldn't raise more money. So we were always undercapitalized from inception. But we made it work, and we still continue to grow and increase the value of this asset in the company. So we've done all that, and our large shareholders know that, and their continued support. I agree. If our share price is like this in a year, and we have cash flow, then you can reinvest in buying back your shares and moving that path. So certainly we would, I guess, in the meantime, look at normal course issuer bids or those type of opportunities where at least you can buy back some stock when it's undervalued if you have the cash to do so. And so we're always looking at that. We're owners just like every other investor. So long-term or short-term investors, we feel the same pain as everyone else, but we're in it to build a real company. And every time we update, good or bad, we're in it with you guys, and we're certainly in it for a longer period. This was never a flip, list and sell opportunity. There's certainly a lot of opportunity, and as shareholders, whether it's privatizing, you can have other ways to deliver that return on investment. So return of capital, for example. So in 2-3 years, if our share price remains undervalued, we can still buy back our shares. We can deliver dividends to our shareholders, including ourselves, and everyone can have a win that way. So we're always looking ahead at all the opportunities to create value for investors. I don't think going private is prudent at this point, certainly. But when phase 2 comes online and kicks off that much cash, certainly if it made sense, we've seen that in the past with others.
Christoph in the audience asks, why are the corporate administration costs so high and rising, looking at 2021 versus 2022?
Why are this year's costs higher than the next year's, you mean?
I think this year's versus last year's.
Yeah, certainly. We have more employees. This is the first time that we've issued cash or shares to employees. And we're also spending on some phase 2 things as well. So certainly they creeped up. Some of those things are one-time charges, so they should normalize when we have normalized production as well and cash flow, which we think the next 12 months should certainly show that leveling off on the corporate and administrative costs. They have crept higher. But a lot of that is one-time charges as well.
Okay, thank you. Simon asks, do you convert the Tugrik immediately to USD when you get the money from Mongolian Central Bank?
Yeah, we can convert to USD anytime, but based on our expenses, we keep some from the US and skip on the local currency.
Yeah, so a certain percentage is converted. In fact, that's how we settle the stream. We trip a flag. You're buying those equivalent ounces offshore with US dollars. So, but given that our operating costs are 60-70% in local currency, and the interest rate is higher domestically, it actually makes sense to keep it in local currency and get interest, obviously revenue, as well as those are your costs local.
Okay, thank you. How did you have a crusher problem after commercial production was declared and shareholders were told everything was performing according to design parameters? So maybe just a bit of a clarifying answer there.
Sure. Commercial production is when you hit a certain rate of production based on the output and production profile. So if we told the market we're producing 50,000-60,000 ounces, and we produced 15,000 ounces in our first quarter, you've hit your commercial production. So your mining rate, your crushing rate, your stack rate, your recovery rate, and your ounces produced. So that's commercial production. In fact, some people declare commercial production after their first gold pour. We waited a few months in July 2020. As you mine, you continue to mine more material. And that's new material that you never mined before. So if a boulder, you encounter bigger boulders than you did at surface, that is something you can't foresee. So you adjust. That's a start and ramp up. Everyone understands that you can declare, but then you still have you could run into hiccups along the way And that's what optimization, that's why it's called startup and ramp up mode for the year. So that's something we announced and we adjusted. And like I mentioned before, we've actually increased our crushing rate to date without those hiccups. So when you have new material in real time, you can't control it. I mean, this is real time mining. You encounter higher grade. So our grade for the mine was 1.25 grams, and we're encountering 2 gram material for the first almost 2 years now. I guess how could we not foresee that? But that's a positive. So there's positive and negatives in real time mining, but certainly that was a commercial production announcement. And, there's nothing needed to reverse there. A lot of mines continue and you optimize along the way. That's a mining business, certainly. But we've certainly encountered it. But that was just one of, I'm sure many others that our team had fixed. Both from a safety perspective, environmental perspective, and an operational perspective. That there's things that go on in the background every day that we're doing to optimize and drain the ponds, to clear the pipes, and all these other things that continue to help and that will help achieve better success in the future.
Thank you, Neil. Why is BFS taking so long?
Yeah, sure. No, that's an easy one. We're in that COVID world, unfortunately, for over 18 months now. We're not the only ones. I can name 10 companies that have delayed their PFSs, BFSs, production numbers, financials based on COVID. So we ran into obviously delays with sending samples out. And I think we've made this very clear, right? Because our initial target for the BFS bankable feasibility study was March, April of this year. But it also took almost 2 to 3 months extra to even get the additional samples for met work out of the country. I think Bata, they stood in the warehouse there for months until we can send the Kamloops in BC. That's a logistical issue that we can't control because there's no flights to get that out. So you can't, it's not our delay. It's a logistical procurement delay, if you want to look at it that way. And we're not the only ones, but certainly we want it out as fast as possible, but we want it done properly. So the samples alone, I would say, were the biggest setback in terms of the feasibility study. When you can't do that met work to come up with their phase 2 plan, those are delays. So everyone sees delays because of COVID. And that's really a delay, but I guess on the positive side, we're almost at the finish line. This is a feasibility study that all the banks will receive, the markets will receive, and it should be in final form. I would say within a month. So there's certainly no real bottleneck anymore because that heavy lifting has been done in the last 6 to 8 months after we dealt with the delays that really aren't ours.
Yeah, and also, I mean, even though the previous owners in Steppe Gold had all this met tests done, we actually read it and make sure everything is in place and everything matches. Yeah,
exactly. Good point, Bata. So Centerra in 2012 had done met work on all the sulfides, and now we've made that more robust. One, because we've added more ounces. So ATO 4 and 2 are bigger. And we have more ounces, obviously, and we wanted to make it a bit more robust in terms of test work. So we didn't just rely on their recovery numbers, which actually were economical. We've added more, and that cost us more money and time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. What's your view on listing Steppe Gold warrants publicly?
I don't think it makes sense because it's really concentrated. Holders. The $3 warrants are only with Eric Sprott, so I don't think he wants to list them. You can certainly ask him, but and the $2 warrants that have just under 2 years left on them are held between triple flag. I think 40% of those, and insiders, and our few family offices that came in all at $2 and $2 warrants. So it's quite a concentrated group of investors. So I'm not sure if it makes sense at this point, but it's sort of something we can look into. Maybe that is a way to have to trade hands a little bit easier because they are non-transferable warrants at $2. Maybe it makes sense over the next 2 years to allow some of those investors to trade those and maybe bring some new investors in on the warrant side. We'll look into that, actually. Good question.
Great, thank you for that. Can you provide a status on equipment selection?
For the phase 2, probably.
Yeah, for phase 2, right?
Presumably.
I think we'll be, mid-September is when we'll be able to kind of finalize all that. We still have multiple sources in quotes and part of the feasibility study that's in there. But I would say very quickly by mid-September, on the back of the release of those numbers, we will have already shortlisted or confirmed who each of the equipment providers will be for the major long lead items. On the plants, obviously the crusher has already been identified and is already being purchased and is being installed. But on other long lead larger items, I think by mid-September or by end of September, we should have all that finalized. Because again, this is not a release of a feasibility study and then waiting a year or two to build it or fund it. This will be a release and expansion imminently. And so we would move very quickly. Given that we already have the camp and infrastructure like Bata mentioned, this expansion becomes a lot easier than phase 1, given that we had to get permitting that was took a year. We had to build roads for the first time, water for the first time, the camp. A lot of that, all heavy lifting is done. So September sometime, I guess, is the short answer.
Fair enough, thank you. Simon wants to know, will the recovery rate rise in the future? Now it's at 70%. Some mines provide over 90%. Higher is better. Will the production in full power in the winter, it helps the boiler house to increase recovery rate?
Yeah, listen, we're using 70% recoveries on the gold and 40 on the silver, and we're certainly seeing the path to that. You don't get all that in the first year as the heap leach work, but by year 2 and 3, or takes a few, you'll know what your ultimate recoveries are. Given the grade and what we've seen here so far on our initial production to date over the last year, I certainly believe, and we've heard that from our technical staff and as well as others, that they expect our ultimate recoveries to increase above 70% for the gold on the oxide, certainly. And yes, more is better, and our goal is to get as much cash as we can from these oxides over the next couple of years before phase 2 comes online. And so the higher recoveries, the better, and with the higher grade, that certainly is we think achievable. But I can't give a forecast. That's going to be 75% or 80% or 85% or 90%. But certainly, I believe ultimate recoveries could hit above 70%.
Okay, thank you. Will you end the year with any cash in the till without any dilution or increased debt exclusive to phase 2 spending?
So assuming that obviously we're quite positive, but something we cannot control is that is obviously the ability to get the reagents on site. As long as the reagents are on site imminently, which we expect, then yes, we're going to try to build another 10-15 million US of cash, net cash, on our balance sheet from these ounces that we produce between now and the end of the year.
Okay, great. Is there an option to stock up on extra reagents?
Yeah.
Yes.
So right now we're expecting the reagents from China. It's going to be enough for the end of the year. But even though we are actually right now increasing our capacity of the chemical storage facilities, and starting from now, once the border issues are resolved, we're going to stock twice more than that. Yeah, as used to.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I think we've learned from this issue that it'd be better to get as much in country on site as possible, and it'd be nice to have an extra 6 to 12 months of those agents in country so that we don't have this issue.
Okay, fair enough. How many ounces will Steppe produce in 2021?
Again, without knowing when we're restarting, which could happen again in a week or two, it's harder to forecast. But given that we have 34 200-ish ounces sitting there, ready to be recovered. And we know we can produce, on a monthly basis, between, 5 and 8,000 ounces. You can extrapolate that way if everything goes well from now to the end of the year. Given what we've produced, just over 7,000 to date, September, October, November, December is 4 months. You could add another 20 to 30,000 ounces to the 7 that we've produced. Again, that's just a simple forecast that we cannot control at the moment and dictate until we're back to leaching. The good thing is, when we're back to leaching, we have inventory there. And the good thing is we built an inventory over this last little while too. So really just a deferral of some of those ounces in cash flow.
Great, thank you. Are there any other stock-based compensation charges to corporate administration costs planned for the future?
Certainly, we want to incentivize our employees going forward. We did our first stock-based issuance to all employees on site last summer. It was the first time ever, and we wanted to wait till we were actually in production to do so. But now they're aligned. They have ownership. They have a sense of, and that's a very great way to align your interests with your employees, to have them as owners as well. I think it's very important to do so, and we would certainly look at that in the future. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So the STEP team seems to be continue to face unexpected challenges that have resulted in delays. Could you please speak more to that and how you plan on readjusting so that you prevent further obstacles? And what keeps your team motivated every day despite these challenges?
Yeah, listen, I think on the motivation side, first is we're owners. We built something from scratch. We're used to challenges. As I mentioned earlier, we listed and we were the only listing in 2018 on the main board. When no one wanted to give us money, we still did it. We still built our mine and got it permitted, very risky in the fastest time frame in 2018 to 2020. We brought production online in a very, very tough environment where no one thought we'd produce ever, and we still produced during the COVID. So those things are all, and during that, we've employed 300 people. We've given scholarships. We've done really good things in country, and also we think from a perception, we've highlighted Mongolia that you can do business. It is home to world-class assets and teams and skill set. So all of that, I think the difference we're making in country is what keeps us motivated. The end result is obviously we all want a higher share price, and we're fairly confident in that. Our team's done that before. So we've rode the ups and downs in the business cycle. And we're really only getting started. So there's a lot more to go than 2.5 million ounces in a small heap leach. And so exploration, expansion, and that cash flow once that comes online is what keeps us motivated. Because you can do a lot with that cash in terms of contributing to not just the shareholders, but to the population. And that's the greatest achievement, seeing what we've achieved from when there was nothing here on the site to what we have today with all the people who are very happy and aligned with us in country, not just our employees.
Right. Fair enough. Absolutely. And maybe to that point, for any shareholders who've maybe lost a bit of trust, how do you plan to regain that shareholder trust? Absolutely.
Listen, I agree. I think communication is key, good or bad, on a regular basis. First of all, I think we're always happy to talk to investors. I talk to investors who own 100 shares to those who own millions and everyone in between on a regular basis. And I have time for all of them, and so does our team, the rest of our team. So one is any investors are able to reach out to us directly for any updates. We try to do these webinars and everything else to get people updated on a regular basis. But I think there's a gap in communication sometimes, and that's something we've learned from. And the two ways that you can have trust with your investors is constant communication, good or bad, and of course execution. Well, with hiccups in operations, we've still managed to increase our resource. We've managed to increase our profile. So there's, I think, execution and communication, if that answers hopefully the question. And we're certainly working on more communication on a regular basis. So there's no holes. There's nothing left to perception, I guess.
Great, absolutely. And just another quick question, but when will drill results from UK be released? Do they also have to be sent to Kamloops, BC?
No. So all drill results are actually assayed in country. So what Kamloops, BC was actually the ore from the sulfides to be processed for recoveries. Drill results will be just simply processed today for the results of the grade, right, in the size of that. So that's done in country through ALS or SGS, depending on what UK project versus Steppe ATO. And we're just at the mercy of the backup at labs. Every lab in the world is backed up today, is my understanding still. So you'll have some delays on the analysis and the turnover time. But UK has not even started drilling yet, just to be very clear. Our intention was to start drilling UK at the end of last year. Mongolia has gone through a series of lockdowns, more COVID cases than ever, and deaths. So they've been very safe. We were keeping our people safe. So that's something very exciting that we want to get to, hopefully in a matter of weeks, and we'll announce to the market once we have that drill rig on site and it's turning, because the success Erdene has had around us has been phenomenal of late, and we want to be certainly participate in that with our own project that we've yet to drill. Nobody's ever drilled, and we're dying to.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Listen, guys, unfortunately, I think we're getting close to our time here. So I'd like to thank you for the presentation, as well as everyone in attendance for coming in today. If you didn't have a chance to have your question answered, or if you think of a question after the summit, don't worry, we'll be sending out a quick survey for you to fill out. You can get in touch with the Steppe Gold team, and you can also always find more information at steppegold.com. So with that, Bata, Anil, I'm going to hand it back to you for some final closing words.
Okay. So thank you very much for being with the Steppe Gold. As for this year, previously in previous few years, we had some issues, but we've been resolving all the issues on time, hopefully. And as for operational wise, as for this year, the issues related to the border and reagents are expected to be resolved very soon, and we will be back on production. And we are using all the options and all the opportunities, potential possibilities to fix them as soon as possible. And with the reagents in place, we really do believe we are going to end the year with a strong cash position, and we're going to work full winter period this year compared to the last. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks. And with that, we will close things off for the day. So have a good rest of your day. I hope you guys stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.